Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Money Matters. I am your host, Hung Lu, and today we've got a very interesting session to go through because this is part three of a video that I've done or a series of videos that I've done. Now, even if you don't have a kid or even if you're not looking at doing RESPs, the idea behind today's session is still going to be really relevant because you can apply it to anything where you want your money to have more than one job. Okay, so this is a mindset shift in terms of making money be a golden goose for you. Okay, or like a golden egg type of deal. Okay, so let's go into the events before we go into the calculations today. Okay, so for those of you who are interested in the, you cannot minimize. Why can I not minimize? Okay, so let's see here. I want to share my screen with you guys. Okay, there is an event coming up on October the 7th, and it is an online event. So let me move this here. Okay, so it is an online event. So even if you're not in BC, the ideas here can be applied to the multifamily densification in Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto, all of that stuff. The ideas are similar, so you can apply it there. So this is the densification, the multifamily, the small scale multifamilies in Vancouver. So my team is going to be presenting on this concept of more doors, more deals, more dollars. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how Vancouver is doing small scale multifamily, come to this online webinar. Okay, so I will put the link so that you can register for this event coming up. What are we? In a week or two? Okay, so that is the event coming up. Okay, so let's get into the calculation for how to give your money more than one job. And we're going to relate this back to the RESP contribution. Now, if you've watched some of my past videos, you know that one of the things that I actually said was, hey, you know what? It might actually be worthwhile to stop your RESP contribution. Okay, so now, as you guys know, I am sometimes not a big fan of RRSPs, RESPs, all of that stuff. So, one of the things that I did a while ago was, showing that maybe contributing money to your kids' RESP may not be a good idea. So, if you haven't watched that, okay, after you watch this, go back and watch part one and part two, and you'll get a better understanding of why I said that. Okay, but now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how you can actually still do the RESP and do the other stuff that I was talking about, which is leveraging some of your cash to go and buy an investment property or invest in a business or buy more stocks. Okay. Now, of course, I do have to put a disclaimer out there. I'm not a financial advisor. A lot of the information that I share on this channel is really just to give a different perspective on how to look at stuff. It may not be the right risk tolerance for you and your family. Okay. So just go and double check this with other people. You'll see in some of the comments that I got on part one and part two of the videos on YouTube, some of it was positive, but some of it was like, hey, Hong, you know what? What about this angle or what about this consideration? And so those comments are very valid as well. Okay. So that's why I want to make sure that, I'm not 100% saying, hey, don't do RESPs or don't do RSPs or TFSAs. Those mechanisms or those strategies have a place, but just, know that there's other considerations. Okay. And so this is another part of that consideration. So at the end of part two video, I said, hey, you know what? You may want to consider doing some other leverage strategies and doing your RESPs. And so this is what we're actually going to deep dive into today. Now, the one thing that I also want to point out is that I did part one in 2017 and part two in 2019. So it's been a few years. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm actually revisiting and doing this part three, partly because my kid's older now, and partly because I've been able to leverage, my investments in a way that makes sense. And so I sort of want to share how I did that. Okay. But before you go out and implement it or, do this, just make sure you understand it. Talk to somebody else as well. Okay. So what I'm saying is instead of just doing the RESP or instead of just doing RRSPs or instead of just doing one thing with your money, look at leveraging it and doing two or three or four things with that money. Okay, so here's what I'm suggesting first is do this first if you're able to. Okay. And this alternative strategy is if you have access to a HELOC, and so this is a home equity line of credit on your primary or on your investment property, like it doesn't really matter. But it helps more if it's actually on your primary residence. Okay, partly because now you're actually able to write off some of that interest payments on your mortgage, like you're converting your Canadian mortgage into a tax deductible expense. And if that sentence alone does not make sense to you, okay, then you definitely need to sit down with your mortgage agent or with your bank and just figure out how to make like just understand that concept that even in Canada you can there's ways to make it so that your primary mortgage is a tax deductible expense. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into this HELOC idea. So the idea is to take your HELOC, pull your HELOC money out, go do another investment with it, buy an investment property, buy stocks, put it into a business. But it has to be an income generating investment. If you put it into something and you lose money, if you put this into like one of those flow through mining companies, this idea is not going to work. Okay. It needs to be an income generating, like at a very high probability that you're going to make money on this. Okay, so for me, that's real estate. Okay, like taking the money, putting it down as a down payment into an investment, doing private lending, or putting money into another investor's project and getting cash flow, equity, all that stuff back. Okay, that's how I leverage my golden goose. Okay, so let's just say that the rate on this HELOC is 6%. Okay, so the yellow is the items that I'm going to be playing with. So my investment return, that means I'm going to take my 62,000 out from my HELOC. I'm going to pay 6% on that money because the bank's going to charge me that money. But in return, I'm going to make 10% on that money because I'm going to go put it into a real estate opportunity. So my delta there, that means I'm going to make 4% by the time I pay the interest, by the time I get that back. Okay. So I'm going to make 4%. So 4% is not that great. It's, GIC returns. Okay. So this is the bare minimum returns that I want to get. Now I'm using the 62,000 because the 62 is where I need to be in order to make the minimum amount of profits that I'm going to pull out and put into the RESP. So the reason why I'm doing this is because I've got a kid and I'm trying to figure out, ways to give my money more than one job. Like I don't want to just put the money into an RESP and get the government grant matching and then my kid goes off to university. Like what I want to do is actually take my money, get an investment and do the RESP and maybe do something else. Okay. So giving my money more than two jobs. Okay. Like more than one job. Okay. So this is, how I'm doing it. Okay, so I'm taking the 62. So in year one, I'm taking the 62,000 from my HELOC and I'm going to get an investment return of 6,200. So that's just the 62,000 times my 10%. Okay. And then I'm going to less my annual fees, which is on the 6%. So then that means that my profit is going to be around 2,480. Okay. And so that's just the difference of my 6,002 minus my 3,720. So now the idea here is that I'm going to take this 2,480 and I'm going to put that into my RESP. Okay. And so then this RESP, when I come over here, oh, let me go over here, um, is then going to get the government match of $500. And then the RESP balance is going to grow every single year. And then that's just going to be invested into something like the S&P 500 or something that's going to generate you like a 6% return on the RESP. Okay, so you see there's two ways that my money's working there. Okay, so now this if you need to get a refresher on where this entire chart was built out and this section over here about, this fictitious child that I have, okay, you are going to want to go and watch part one and part two. Okay, and those I will put in the links below so that you can follow that along. All right. So this one here, so now this okay, so this concept of using your money for more than one job can be applied to anything. It doesn't need this 2,500 doesn't need to go back into an RESP. You can put that somewhere else, into a TFSA, into your RRSP, which I don't really support that idea. Do the TFSA first, okay? And or pay down your mortgage, do something else, or pay down your credit cards, okay? So here's the thing. There's a couple of things that you do need to consider. So I'm just going to put that, I'll go through that, but it is listed here. Okay. The one thing that you need to consider with this alternative strategy, when you're leveraging your money more than one time, is what's the capital gains? Okay. There's a change in Canada around capital gains. And depending on what strategy you're using, like if you're buying real estate or stocks or business, you're going to have certain capital gains. Okay, so that's the one thing. And then what other fees do you have? Like if you're taking this 62,000 and you're putting it into like a REIT or a MIC or something like that, there may be other fees that you need to consider, which then will bump up this 6%. Okay, so even though we're saying that your profit here is going to be around the 2,500, okay, that's the target that we want because that's the minimum that we want to put into the RESP. You're going to want to run the numbers with whatever extra fees you have. Okay, now, yeah, so now this third assumption is that this investment return is higher than your rate of borrowing, your cost of borrowing. Now, getting a 10% return on your money, not everybody knows how to do that. Okay. So this is where you either need to get a better understanding of the different investment vehicles that will give you that 10% plus. Okay. And the reason why I say not everybody understands how to get 10% plus is because it's so evident when I talk to a lot of individuals who are just learning how to make their money work for them, right? Or realizing that when you put your money into a TFSA, you actually have to invest that. Like there's an additional step afterwards. Opening up a TFSA and putting money into it is not enough. You actually have to then take that money and invest it into something, okay? And if it just sits in the TFSA and doesn't make anything, you might as well just have put it into a GIC. Okay. So the third assumption is that you know how to or where to put your money to get this 10% plus. And it has to be a plus. It cannot just be a bare 10%. Okay, because if you're just going to do that, well then depending on your risk tolerance, if you don't know how to get 10% plus on your money, you probably don't want to do this alternative strategy. Okay, so yeah, so then you have to be comfortable with leveraging and risk, and that just goes back to my previous comment that if you don't know how to make 10 plus on your money, you may not want to even look at this. Okay, and I guess I should have said that at the very beginning. Okay, but I do appreciate you watching these videos because I am a firm believer that learning how to make your money work for you comes with knowledge, right? And so if you're just learning, high five to you for, yeah, high five or double high five for you to take that time to learn it. Okay, so now, yes. So now the other assumption is that you have access to a HELOC and it's in a re-advanceable HELOC, meaning that as you pay down your mortgage, okay, your primary or your investment, doesn't matter. As long as you're paying down your primary sorry, as long as you're paying down your mortgage and this is a re-advanceable HELOC and you have 62,000 as a minimum, then this strategy may work for you. Okay, so this is assuming that you have 62,000. Not everybody has that from day one, especially if you just bought your home. Okay, so you do want to make sure that you do have that, but it's a good goal to have, right? To grow your HELOC money to that. Okay, so here is the benefit because I was thinking for a really long time, like, why complicate things so much? Like, why leverage this to only do this first, only when you're, just going to put that into, let's say, an RESP, and you're still going to have the RESP anyways. Like, why not just jump to the RESP? Okay. The reason that you want to do this first, okay, is that you are going to, like, okay, because I highlight this, do this first. The benefit is now you're making your money work twice or three times for you, and you're going to, in the end, have another asset. Like, this is the big thing for me, is having that other asset. This other asset is going to have mortgage pay down. So like in my case, because I'm going to be buying more real estate, is you're going to have mortgage pay down. You're going to have passive appreciation. Even if you do nothing else, you're going to have passive appreciation. Okay. You're going to have mortgage pay down. That means in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, when you pull out that cash, it's tax free. Like that in itself is worth considering. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. Okay, if you need any more information, please put it in the comments. It may take me a year or 2 years to get back to you, but at least the comments are there and I will address them. Okay, I love teaching, I love educating, and so at some point I will, you know, respond back. I also want to thank everybody who actually put comments into part one and part two because there was a lot of very insightful comments there. And so I want to say thank you for that. I actually learned quite a bit from other people in terms of how else to look at this situation. Okay. I'm learning as well. And so I would just want to say thank you for that. Okay. So before I forget, I'm just going to also bring up the invite for the more doors, more dollars, and more deals, more dollars. Okay. This is put together by Mark and Trent and Kathy. They are a wonderful team and they are so knowledgeable. I'm just so super happy that I get to sort of ride on their coattails. Okay, so if you have not registered, please do so. This is a great way to learn about how homeowners, how investors, how real estate agents can leverage properties in Vancouver. And then, if you're watching this, you can learn how to leverage that in Toronto and Alberta as well. Okay. All right, everybody. That is it for me for Monday. Oh, we are September already, September 29th, the end of the month. So thank you, everybody, for watching and have a fabulous week. Okay, bye-bye.